welcome back everyone to another podcast episode. Today, a very special guest, Audrey Tate of Franz Ferdinand and many other musical projects. Welcome, Audrey. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
We were just chatting about the difficult conditions that you're on tour currently, and you're fighting against the heat when you're playing these days.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm currently first world problems, isn't it? I'm like it's too hot when I'm playing. But yeah, there's a bit of a heat wave going on in Europe just now. So this week I've been in Lyon and a couple of other places in France, and I'm currently in Nice, where I played last night, and it was 30 degrees when we took to the stage. So my Scottish skin was was not loving it.
no,
But I mean, I'm going to go back home probably in a couple of weeks and be moaning about the rain. So I should try and enjoy it. But it's just playing in it. It's too much,
I can
too much
imagine.
for me.
I could. Is that Are you hydrating a lot in between songs?
Oh yeah, I feel like a camel. I'm just retaining water, and I've got a fan and everything as well, and I've got a little mini fan clamped onto
Yeah.
my clapstick stand, but it's just blowing warm air
Oh
at me. So I just keep looking round to Joss my tech, like
yeah.
I'm sad faced. And I think if anyone's ever seen like one of our Franz Ferdinand shows, it's high energy, like full pelt for 90 minutes. So
Yeah.
just like, who needs the gym? I'll just grin and bear it.
That's it. That's your cardio right there.
Yeah.
That's I've never heard of a little fan as part of like a drum kit setup. That's great. That must become a really important part of the setup in during the summer when it's real hot. Just the fan.
Oh, I mean, I won't lie, it wasn't doing much for me last night, but it's a pram fan. So because my oldest niece had a baby and they were going on holiday last summer, so I got one of these fans for her, and I was like, hold on a minute, this is perfect. And we played on later with Jules Holland a few weeks ago, and the way the angle, we just had the fan set up, and it wasn't even on, but you know that we were like, oh, that's just the setup.
Yeah.
So the fan was on this like tiny little thing on my setup, and one of my pals messaged me and was like, that love the fan getting its moment, like the camera kind of came
Yeah.
in on it, and I was like, oh cool, it's
Oh,
the real
okay.
deal. It's part of my setup as much as the drums, I guess now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. I need to go back and look through live performances to see if you can spot the fan now.
Oh,
But
you'll
yeah,
see it. Yeah, yeah.
a little
You'll
Easter
be like,
egg.
what is that tiny thing? Yep, it's
Yeah.
the fan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Jules Holland and that you're currently on tour. I mean, a big recent date for you guys was Glastonbury as well. Just last week, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Friday we played.
yeah.
So yeah,
And I caught some of it. It looked amazing. How was it for you?
yeah. I mean, it was incredible. That was my first time ever at Glastonbury.
Wow.
The band had played it, I think, 4 or 5 times. And when they had done the FFS, which was the collaboration with Sparks, they had, I think it was the last time that they played. Um, but I don't know if it's a Scottish thing or a drummer thing, but I try not to get too hyped up about stuff. So the whole kind of couple of weeks building up to it, a lot of people, like friends and family, would be like, "Oh, are you excited for Glastonbury?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but we've got hundreds of gigs to do this year." And uh, I guess I'm just like, "Well, you just give it your all
Mm,
for every show." Um, so I think it didn't really hit me until I came home. So I came home the day after,
mm,
because I seize any opportunity to get that secret time in my house, and I watched a lot of Glastonbury on the TV, and the thing came up, like the highlights and Take Me Out come up, and
yeah.
we brought on Peter Capaldi to sing with us. And then there was like this kind of big zoom out with the camera, and I was like, oh my god, that's actually huge. And I
Yeah.
think I maybe didn't even quite realise when I was playing. But I mean, it was amazing. We had such a good response. The sun was shining, and we played at like 5 o'clock, and it just felt like people were just so buzzing to be there. You're in day one, so it felt like the perfect slot for us. So yeah, I
Yeah.
loved it.
No,
Love to do it again.
oh, I bet. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell from the crowd's energy, and I know what you mean. That sometimes like those kind of aerial wide shots where you see just how big the crowd is. It's crazy. So when you're on stage, do you try to just basically stay in the zone and stay locked in and not get swept up in the moment of like, oh my God, I'm playing Glastonbury?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I love to look out and try and connect a bit with some of the crowd as well, if you can get a bit of eye contact. So yeah, I was looking around and taking it all in, and I don't get too like, obviously I get in a zone of playing, and I think especially like I think for both music fans and musicians, like music is such an escapism. So when I'm on the stage, I'm just thinking about playing and thinking about where I am. And but I do quite like to. I was really enjoying the flags actually, because that's the first time I've ever played with so many flags.
Yeah.
And there were some really funny ones. So I was like, I was like reading the flags, and yeah, just kind of taking in as much as I could have. But I guess it wasn't until after when I seen the shots. And then I set up a little drum cam. I've got a little GoPro. So I had that so you could kind of see the crowd. And I hadn't looked at it until Wednesday. I was putting it on my laptop, and I was like sifting through it. And the footage of Take Me Out is just, because there was like flares and all that went off, and everyone was just bouncing. So I was like, oh, look. And I was showing Bob, the bass player. I was like, oh, Bob, look at this. And he's like, oh, wow. I think the two of us were just like, oh, that we did that. That was really cool.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah. It's one of those things, I guess, that it's very difficult to imagine what it would be like to be in that moment. And I can picture how when you're in that moment, you're just like, I'm going to try and take this in, but it's only afterwards where, especially if you have like reference footage and you're like, that happened, I was there, that was a thing. But
yeah. I think as well, seeing the other artists that played on the stage as well over the weekend, because I had no idea of the scale of the festival, like as in just how many stages there were. Because I mean, I watch it every year, so you're aware of like what they show you on the television, but I wasn't aware of like there's loads I would have loved to explore. But I was kind of like, because of the time we were on and everything, I was like, I just want to focus on playing. And the thing I loved about it as well actually was that it was live on the telly, so it meant like I've got a big family, and it meant everyone was like tuned in and watching it. So the family chat was popping off during it. So it kind of felt as if everybody that I knew was like part of the build up to it on the day, and like messaging, and they could watch it. Whereas I think a lot of the time they're just like, oh, Audrey's away. She's away playing, and they come and see the shows that they can, but they were kind of there with me in it, which was quite special.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I think that's what's so great about Glastonbury is that it's renowned as, you know, one of the biggest festivals in the world, and I guess in the UK with the, you know, it's on BBC they're just super organised. On the iPlayer they've got loads of different sets, and you can tune in live, and it's great. I wanted to ask, I mean, you mentioned it. How did the Peter Capaldi thing come about?
Well, the link actually comes from my partner plays with Lewis, not Lewis, the other one, Peter Capaldi. So he was making music a long time ago before he was acting, I think, like in the 80s. And in fact, because Bob found a picture of him with his band, and he had Craig Ferguson on drums. You know, is he a comedian? He presented like The Late Show or something in America for years. But anyway, so Peter's made a couple of albums, and he's been sort of dipping his toes in the water of playing again. So my partner plays in his band, and a few people I know play in his band, and it just kind of came up in conversation. And then Alex was like, do you think he'd fancy doing a song with us? And I'm like, I think he would probably love to. And then so Alex and him had a chat, and Peter was really up for it, and yeah, just came on board, and it was a really good sport, because in the introduction we were kind of like, Alex was just quite clever with it, because there was the big rumour of who was on the pyramid stage, and it was Lewis Capaldi, so he was like, the original Peter Capaldi, and it came out. But he's great. He's a great singer, and what a performer! Like, he looked the part, and like, I looked round and he just came out with his shades on, and I was like, oh, he looks so cool. I was like, right, we're not smiling. We're serious for the intro here. And then he kind of glanced round at me at one point and just kind of smiled, and we had a wee giggle to each other, because you're just like, how stupid is this? You know, like, you have those moments and you're just like, this is our jobs. Like, it's really funny. So but yeah, that's how it came about, and thankfully he was up for it. So he's playing in Glasgow, I think, later this month. So I think we're all going to go and cheer him on.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. I had no idea he had this kind of musical background, and as you said, he came on and he had such like aura and stage presence, and his look and his shades and his outfit was incredible.
Oh yeah, it looked really cool, and I think you could see in the backstage area, like, a few people kind of looking and being like, and then it's funny because the amount of people that come up to him that are like big fans of the thick of it, and then obviously Doctor Who, and because I was talking to my brother and one of my nephews after it, and I was saying, oh, did you recognise Peter Capaldi? And wee Lewis was like that. I knew straight away, he's my favourite Doctor. He's big into Doctor Who. It's such a contrast in characters, isn't it? Malcolm Tucker, Doctor Who.
It's like opposite ends of the scale. That's incredible. I mean, I'm gonna lean more into drum chat if we're ready to go there. I guess quite a classic question. In terms of pre-gig warm up and ritual, what does that look like for you?
Well, I'm kind of doing an extended warm up now at the moment, because I'm actually suffering from, I've got golfer's elbow. I think just because we've been playing so much this year, so I've had to see a physio a couple of times. So it's basically the opposite. I'll do my tutorial. It's the opposite tendon from tennis elbow. So tennis elbow you get on the outside, and golfers is in here. And it tends to be when I'm hitting over to the right. So if I'm crashing over there, if I'm on the right, it's like a pain here that I'm getting, which verges from being okay to bearable to excruciating. So it's pretty, it was pretty bad actually last week. And I seen a physio who did a bit of acupuncture on it, which helped. So I've got all these stretches to do now, which involves like not just stretching the hands and the fingers and the wrist, but you need to kind of twist to try and move the muscle a little bit so as it's not hitting against the tendon. So it's basically just a combo of that, and like on the pad, I got, Evans very kindly gave me one of the, I can't remember the name of it, they've got a new pad which feels more, as much as they have the real feel one, this one actually is more of a real feel to it. So I don't do anything too fancy in terms of rudiments. It's all more just about really loosening up and building. I set the metronome, I think it's at like 165, and it's just going from like singles to doubles, a couple of like little like 3-stroke rolls, 6-stroke rolls, triplets, and I'll do that I'll be on the pad for probably about half an hour before we play, but I start all the stretching and everything maybe like 45 minutes before, so I just sort of go between, because I don't know if you're similar, but I do, even like today, I do feel like my wrists and my fingers sort of tighten up day to day. So even in days when I'm not playing, I still like stretch like just throughout the day, you know, like if you're waiting for the kettle to boil, you just have a little stretch. But more so now, I have to do this my regime for the elbow.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, and a topic that isn't discussed so much with drummers, which is just kind of like the muscular element to it, and how much we move, and some movements can be quite odd. But I know what you mean, that in periods when I'm playing a lot, I do feel that tension more in the forearms and the fingers, and I do find myself just loosening up a bit more, because it can really complicate your life when it comes to drumming. So do you find when you're doing the stretches beforehand that helps then?
Yeah, because often I'll start on the pad, and then I'll stop and I'll stretch, and then when I go back to the pad, it tends to feel a little bit easier, and then I'll kind of stop and go between and do a little bit of stretches on the legs as well, actually, because that's underrated. Because I found like when I played, I mean, I've been playing lots of gigs for years, but the scale of like joining Franz Ferdinand and the adrenaline's going, and a lot of the time, a lot of the beats are kind of disco-y, like 4 to the floor. But I think sometimes when you're doing that, when you then switch to doing something that's maybe a little bit more on the bass drum, sometimes my right leg was tensing up. So I try and give that a stretch, and like my ankles as well. And I've actually started drinking like magnesium, like kind of sport electrolyte, like sachets, as well. But like I don't drink before I'm playing. I don't drink during a gig or anything. Just try and keep hydrated. It's all the I guess less rock and roll stuff, but it's you need to do it if you're trying to sustain like the amount of gigs that we play. So yeah, I've been having that as well, and I'll usually have like a herbal tea or something. Like I think stuff to sort of relax your muscles can be quite helpful, and I've kind of become more aware of that since the elbow thing. So I'm just trying to do all the right stuff, because it's essentially it's my enjoyment of the show that's going to be affected if I'm not warmed up enough, or if I start getting pain. You're like that's all you're thinking about, and that's really not what your focus wants to be when you're on a show.
Absolutely, I think that's very sensible, especially as you're saying, you've got so many, you've got a very full calendar. You need to be able to sustain the levels of performance throughout. And you mentioned absolutely, I agree, the legs and the feet, looking after those as well. And I was going to ask you if you had kind of any pieces of advice that you would pass to drummers, any golden pieces of advice in terms of right foot, or whatever foot someone uses for the bass drum. What kind of stretches or positions? Because are you mostly heel up or heel down?
Heel up for the right, and I go between. If I'm doing open hi-hats, heel down on the hi-hat, but usually I'm a tiptoer.
Yeah, nice. I get that. So what is there any like special secret stretches that you do, or is it just kind of straightforward?
I wish I knew some, but with really just my ankles, like just rotating them the same way you do all the wrist rotations, and then just a few stretches to kind of loosen off the upper, what is that, like your thighs and your hamstrings, because that can sometimes feel a bit tight. And I think you forget when you're playing the drums, you think it's all arms, but it's kind of your whole body that's working. So I mean, I'm probably talking a better game than I actually execute. Like with the leg, I'm thorough with my arms and my wrists. And one of the ones the physio gave me actually was your like to loosen your fingers, but we were calling it 90s rave to help me remember it, but actually just kind of doing this with your fingers and like twisting as you do it, so you look like a bit of I've probably fit in at Glastonbury doing that. but yeah, doing all that and like just moving about, because I think sometimes you forget about how much your fingers are moving. So that would be my secret one, actually, is to make sure you're stretching the fingers, and then if you're like stretching your hands and your wrists, to twist it as well.
Okay.
is quite a good one, and I felt that being like a really good stretch. So when you go forward and then move it round, that's quite good. But I'm open to tips for the legs. If you've got any, let me know.
Oh, geez. I mean, I was just gonna say I'm definitely gonna try the. I mean, the '90s rave one sounds like it makes a lot of sense, and I don't know why. That's great. I don't know why.
Yeah, it feels weird though, and sometimes I'm warming up and I'm like, if MD passes this dressing room, they're going to think I'm crazy. But but you got to do what you got to do.
It's just artistic preparation. That's
yes.
I mean, on this topic of like the body performing music, but even in terms of mind and that approach, is there a track when you're playing with Franz Ferdinand that even now currently or for the first time when you are learning the kind of catalogue, is there what's like the hardest track, would you say, for you to learn or to play?
The one I moan about a little bit is a track called Jacqueline, which is, it's really fast and it's not a 4 to the floor beat, so it's like one of those ones which is really pounding, and what I've came to realise recently is what I moan about in that is because it's one of the ones that hurts my arm. And I think that one was always a little bit of a struggle to learn, just because the pace of it, because the live show is very different from the recordings. Like that was one thing when I joined the band, was learning the arrangements, like, because the whole thing is like they want everything to feel exciting. So if that means that you maybe play a riff like 3 times instead of 4, then that's what will happen. So probably most notably in a song like Do You Want To, which is quite a crazy arrangement anyway, the live version of it is a little bit different. So it was like getting my head around all that, and all I had like live versions of everything to learn that, and I was like, oh, these are really quick. And another one was Darts of Pleasure, which was the first single, and again that's a fast one and like a really fun beat, and you're kind of switching from doing like kind of busy snare stuff to going straight into like disco beats, which I kind of loved. I love that switch up. But there was like one little bit in it that had this like really unusual stop that my brain was just not getting, and then once you get into it you're like, oh right, I know what that is, and that's fine. But to be fair, they're all really fun songs to play. Like it was a real joy to learn them. And then we've made this new album, The Human Fear, which came out in January, and that's my first album with the guys, and it feels like it's been great to sort of put my own stamp on the sound of the drums and the way that they're played. So that's been really good. So there's a couple of the new ones that I really love playing, because they've maybe got a slightly different vibe, but still in keeping with the Franz Ferdinand sound, of course.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, really, about how do you balance that, because you've got this long kind of string and tradition of albums that they have, and then all of a sudden you're coming in with your own drum parts, and I guess you want to impose your style and yourself onto it, but perhaps not completely overhaul the sound.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to rock in with like a double bass drum pedal and hundreds of toms. Like it's not going to work. But I mean, I love Paul's drumming. Like Paul Thompson was the original drummer, and like I love his style. And obviously, when I came into the band, I wanted to be really respectful to the parts, and like a band that's been going for 20 years. It's like you say, you're not going to go in and tear up the songbook kind of thing. So you like, but at the same time, I've always really wanted to have identity in the way that I play, and you want to have that there, because I just think if you're trying to imitate someone, whatever you're doing, whatever you're playing, you're just going to be a lesser version of that.
Yeah.
So there's kind of no point in becoming like a poor man's Paul Thompson, because I'm doing my own thing, so I can kind of make my mark on it. And I think because when I came in, I actually was brought in to do some recording, so I learned like newer songs before I was doing the older the catalogue, which was really good because it just kind of gets you in the mindset of how Alex writes.
Yeah.
And then we went on tour with the Hits to the Head, which was like the greatest hits album. So by doing that, it's such a good foot in the door with the band, because I'm like, I've been with them in the studio, so I kind of have a feel for how that works. And now I'm out doing like the thing that they've been doing forever, and I can try and cement like myself into that and get used to like it. I mean, it's the best way to learn how someone writes, isn't it? If you're just playing with them and playing songs that they've written. So I think by the time this new album came along, as a band, we were just really tight and playing really well, and I think that comes across. Like most of the album was recorded with us all playing together and in the same room, and I think you can feel that. And then it's grown again since then, because we've been playing so much again. So I maybe meandered a little bit there, but I think I answered the question.
Absolutely. No, that was very well explained and very well put, especially the bit about being just a lesser version, you know, when you're trying to imitate or redo someone else's work. I thought that was really well put. Regarding the new album, I wanted to ask if there's a groove or a fill or a lick that you're just really proud of, and you're kind of almost smug that you're like, I really like this.
What one? I like, there's a big fill actually in Audacious, which was our first single from the album. And it's quite a kind of retro sounding song. It's the album opener. And it really opens up, like the song starts off with it's the actual demo track, so it's like programmed drums and like the demo that Alex had made, and then it kind of opens out into this big chorus and with strings and everything, and then at the end of the song there's a couple of kind of big fills that happen, just big like triplets. So I quite like those moments, because I'm probably more of a groove player. I'm not very flash. And in terms of that, I guess for the grooves, there's a song called Build It Up that I'm really enjoying playing that at the moment on tour, because I feel like when we're all locked in, it just has like a kind of summery, like you just see people moving a little differently. Like a lot of the time they'll be jumping to a lot of the songs, and it can be quite tense. And this one, I'm just like, I can just like sort of groove a little bit on that. So that would maybe be my two at the moment, but stuff like that changes all the time.
Nice. Amazing. I'm ready. I love asking these questions because I'm already thinking ahead about, you know, cutting them together and then splicing footage of the tracks, and I'm looking forward to that. And I also like I think it's important in a set list to have variety in that energy. And I mean, by all means, maybe a band would want a set list where everyone's jumping the whole time. But I love the idea of like a set list that takes you to different places and different energies. I think that variety just...
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have dynamics, don't you? And I think we're probably one of a few bands these days that we don't play with tracks or click or anything like that. So the set list will change from gig to gig, and like Alex is the complete leader and complete frontman, so if he's getting a feeling to do something, or he'll just turn around and be like, let's throw that one in. And Jacqueline is one of the ones that people always shout for. So there's now become a little look to me to be like, and I'm like, I actually like this, I really like the song. It's just a bit sore sometimes, but so there's a real freedom there. And but again, there's such a big catalogue. So recently we've been flinging in a couple of like really old songs, like from the first album, and you can tell like the hardcore fans are like, wow, like, because I think a couple of them, I think the band maybe hadn't played them for like 10 years or so. So that's been fun, like flinging even older ones in as well.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Well, like you said, I think it must be great for fans because you've got there's this element of not knowing what to expect, because there are some groups that, you know, gig to gig it's always the same set list, and I've spoken to people and it can be challenging, you know, when you always have the same material. I mean, but they have a great time. But from the drummer's perspective, from the musician's perspective, is it also quite stimulating that every gig is different, the set list is different?
Yeah, definitely. And even just things like the tempos can fluctuate as well. And I think when it's the hot weather, as I've mentioned, I think sometimes some of the songs are a little slower. And then when it's the big energy, like some of them are faster. And there's a real unity as well between the five of us on stage, but also our crew. We've got an amazing crew, and particularly like the Rick on sound and Dan on lighting. There's some moments in the set where it just feels so together because we're all kind of, it's so free. So like there's a few of the songs that like will maybe be extended, and it varies from gig to gig. So it means that they can be a bit more free as well. Whereas I think in particular with lighting, not that I know lots about it, but I think it can just become pushing a button.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a lighting engineer, a designer that's just so on it, and like he has things timed like with the fills and all that. So if there's like a fill, the lights are flashing with it, and it just feels really unified.
Yeah.
Which I think if it was really monotonous, not monotonous, if it was just the same each gig, it would become monotonous, wouldn't it? It would be a bit like you'd be having to find things to, well, I think I would, to get yourself excited. So, well, not, I mean,
I know what you
obviously
mean.
it's great to play all the time, but yeah, I just love the freedom, and we have a lot of like we play with time a lot and within the songs as well, so it kind of it makes sense to, you can't really do that if everything's time coded and to a click.
Yeah, that's true. And I think ultimately an environment where both the musicians and the tech and the crew, an environment where they can be a bit more free flow and just kind of go with it. I think I guess it is all about taste, but I think that to me sounds like a great environment.
Yeah, it keeps it real, I think, as well. Like you can, I think obviously you need a level of production, like you need lighting, and we've got a bit of like some risers and like some fancy staging sometimes, like, but I think just when you've got that, like when everyone's like really working together and top of their game, you're like, it just makes it enjoyable for everyone, and as it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll take another detour here and ask for again, this is a common question that I ask because I think the answers are always very interesting. Who would you say are some of your biggest drumming influences?
Drumming influencers. I mean, the number one would actually be my drum teacher from when I was younger and mentor, Kenny Hislop, who was just an incredible drummer, and he passed away last year, and it was quite to the heart, like when that happened. But he played in a Scottish band called Slick in the 80s, and then he had a stint with Simple Minds as well. So particularly in Scotland, everybody knew who Kenny was, and I think he just kind of taught me how to sort of like help me find my sound, and like we would just play along with music, like 2 drum kits from when I was age 10. We had the 2 kits and music blaring through a PA in this like Carlton Studios in Glasgow, and we would just play along with everything. And he would be like, bring a CD that you like and we'll play it. So obviously as a 10-year-old girl, I was taking like the Backstreet Boys and all that, like at first, and then it would develop, and he really got me into like soul and Motown, and and we'd always just try and find really obscure stuff. So like he would be number one on like my influencers. But I love Stanton Moore. He's one of my favourite drummers. Like, in fact, it was Kenny that introduced me to the Galactic, I can't say it, Yake May album.
Yeah, I can't say it either.
But that album, where I was just like, oh, this is incredible, because I've been to like drum clinics, and a lot of the time, no offence, but a lot of music that drummers make is not music that I want to listen to. Like, like I seen Thomas Lang, and I was like, oh my God, he is a machine. He was like the Terminator coming out, and he was just so big and so strong, and his drumming was like immense. But the music that he was playing, it just wasn't up my street. But like, you know, so I think when I heard that Galactic album, and that it was led by Stanton Moore, the drummer, I was like, all right, so you get drummers that make like cool music as well, music that I want to hear. So yeah, I would say him. And Questlove, I'm a massive fan of Questlove. Like, I love the Roots. The Roots and Run the Jewels are my favourite hip hop acts, and I kind of just love his vibe as well. So it's not even just a drumming thing, just his whole vibe. And like, I've read a few of his books, and the Creative Quest book I just found so inspiring, just about like in life. And I think you could read that not as a drummer and just get total inspiration from him. And yeah, I think he's just he puts out such a positive energy, such a music lover, and ferocious drummer. Like, he's and producer. Like, he's just, yeah. So that would be my three.
That's a wonderful little three. And I'm glad you mentioned the Questlove books, because they've been on my to read list for a while. But you'd recommend, I'd
recommend Creative Quest would be the best one in my opinion. Although I think he's got a new one which I've not read, but that one, it's almost like a workbook. You can do stuff along with it, I think. Is that the one? But yeah, like, just it kind of talks about him and growing up, and like, see the work rate of the Roots, like going out and busking and and touring, and like, just, you can see there's a reason why they've got to where they are. Like, they've just grafted so hard. But yeah, that's the one I would say is Creative Quest, and then the others.
Okay, I'll bump that one up the list.
Thank you. Number one.
And am I right in saying you have some kind of background or history in hip hop?
Yeah, so I played in a hip hop band in Glasgow we were called Hector Bizerk. Yeah. Spelled wrong, Bizerk. Yeah, that was really, really fun. So it was me and an MC that started the band, and we were just kind of like, let's try and, like, I'd been playing in a lot of bands, and he'd been like doing like loads of hip hop stuff and collaborated with loads of people, and we were like, what if we just take this down to like drums and rap and see what happens? And we were kind of like, well, I think our mindset was like a good song, like from a singer-songwriter, should stand alone just with piano or just with guitar. So a good hip-hop tune should work just with drums and vocal. Yeah. And that's the way we started. So that was a really creative time, actually, because everything started with, like, the writing started on the kit. So you're trying to write almost like hooks, but on the drums, like using the toms. And I had this mad setup. I had rototoms and timbales, and I know it's a bit embarrassing, but they all serve their purpose. Sure, yeah. And then we were getting bigger gigs, and we expanded and got like bass and keys and guitar and stuff in. But it was really fun, and we played a little bit in America and France as well, and always seemed to get a good response, actually. Like, probably a better response. No, we got a really great response in Scotland, but it would always be like, oh, the accent, rapping in a Scottish accent, and you're just like, well, what else are you going to do? You're not going to get someone from like New York rapping as if they're from London, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
with hip hop. But in terms of the drumming, it was brilliant. Like it was a really creative time, and it got me even more into like I produce music as well, so it got me more into that because I was like, okay, I'll just try and do as much as I can
Yeah.
here because it was all very DIY.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that point about, I think, accents with vocals, a lot can be said about that, and I guess it's just at this point now it's just like people are used to a certain accent.
Well, that's
And
it, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, remember when like Arctic Monkeys came out and then there was just loads, I don't know, like where you are, but there was loads of bands in Glasgow that like people were singing with like a Sheffield accent. Or like, I guess back in Oasis, like everyone's
Yeah.
singing with the old shine and all that. And you're like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you don't, not that everyone needs to be so Scottish or like wherever you're from, but if you're doing if you're going to have an accent, make it your own, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
Yeah.
very, very sensible. Very sensible. I was going to ask about because I think acoustic drums or non drum machine drums in hip hop, I always find them fascinating, and I think typically some of my favorite hip hop material includes acoustic drums. Did you try and kind of have a hybrid sound at all? Like, was there any kind of drum machine in that setup, or was it just you and the kit?
Just the kit. Yeah, it was all completely live. And then it wasn't until after that band had ceased, I got into Run the Jewels. And then I was like, oh, these beats are heavy. Like, and I got a machine, like the Native Instruments.
Yeah.
I've got one over there. I have a mini one that I take around with me. But I got one of those, and I then had my own studio. So after like the Hector Bizerk stuff, I started up my own studio with my best friend Lauren. So that's called Nova Sound. So we've got a space, we've got a dedicated drum room, and that's when I got more into the hybrid kind of sound. But the core of everything I do is on the kit, because that's where I'm my skills are stronger there. Like, but I love see people that like have machines or MPCs, and in fact Julian in the band, like he's great at programming and playing with his hands, whereas I think I was recording a clap for the album and I was like, why am I so bad at this? When you're only using like one finger, and he was kind of like, yeah, will I just do that? And I was like, yes. Because he makes a lot of electronic music, so he was way better at that. So when I'm programming, I'm like, it's kind of bit by bit and taking advantage of the old quantize. But no, with the hip hop stuff, we didn't have any. It was all live. But what we did have was one of the key things, like when we expanded the band. So we brought a bass player in, and then we brought someone in to do a little bit of like playing a microchord, like a little bit of synth, but to double up on some of the drum parts, because I had this idea in my head where I was like, well, we don't need a hype man like to double up on the vocals, because Louis the MC was so strong, but I was like, but it would be cool to double up on some of the drum parts, so it's like a hype person for the drums. So by the end of the band, like actually we were going for a few years, by the end of the band we had like basically had 3 drummers in the band. So the other 2 drummers played percussion and had synths and guitar, and they would kind of swap about. So it meant for some of the kind of, like I was saying, when you're trying to make a hook on a kit, if the 3 of us were playing it, it just sounded massive. So who needs tracks or electronics when you've got people there that are up for doing it?
Just get more drummers. That's
that's
the solution. Amazing. My final question for you, in a dream world, kind of hypothetical scenario, is there one musician or group that you would love to jam with, just like a day jamming with them? It doesn't have to be in front of people. It could be in a studio. Is there a name that pops into your head?
Yeah, I mean, I love there's two. So my immediate one when you're asking that question is there's a band I love called the Cold War Kids,
Mm.
and I just love the drumming in it. It's so creative, and I feel like I would fit in with that. So that would be one. But to be cheeky and say another one, if it's like anybody, if you could go back in time to like the Funk Brothers making all those Motown records in the one room, that's I want to be in that room,
Yeah.
whether I'm playing the drums or just sitting in a corner. Like just I just think like what the output and the talent and just everything about that group I just think is incredible. Have you seen the documentary?
I haven't. No.
The
What's it called?
oh what's it called again? It's about the funk.
I can,
Oh, I can't remember it now.
I can have a quick Google.
Look it up. It's on YouTube
Best
now.
documentary.
Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. It's all on YouTube, and I watched it recently, and it's just I might watch that tonight in my bunk. Actually, it's so good. I highly recommend
Yeah.
it. But just the fact they were all just in this room and they were like churning out the hits. But yeah, that's I think if I could jam in a band, that's the band I'd want to jam in.
Okay, amazing. I'm gonna add that documentary to my list as well.
You got a lot of homework to do, Dan.
After these interviews, honestly, the amount of homework I have is it's all good homework. It's not the bad homework. At least.
Yeah.
I can't complain. Well, Audrey, thank you so much for your time. I know you're touring. You're in the heat. So I appreciate the time you've taken to have a chat.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been good to chat with you.
Likewise. For listeners, I mean, check out Franz Ferdinand's new album. In January it came out, did you say?
Yeah, it came out in January, so you can listen wherever you do your listening.
Yeah, and the usual places. Yeah. And
usual places.
If Franz Ferdinand are coming to a town near you, get some tickets, check them out live. Fantastic live performance. And yeah, I mean, I'll chuck all the usual links and so on in the description. But thanks again, Audrey.
Good stuff. Thank you. My pleasure. Have a good day.
And you. Bye-bye.
Bye.